In this episode, we will talk about the ecosystem of Horton Plains, mainly focusing on its unique flora. From the capital of Colombo, it takes around 5 to 6 hours to reach Horton Plains National Park, which is located in the central highlands of Sri Lanka. Most of the year, this plateau, situated at an elevation of more than 2,000 meters above sea level, is covered in mist. There are several entrances to the park. The main entrance can be reached via Patipola. Here, visitors can purchase tickets to enter the park. Then there's another entrance from Ohio from the south. All throughout the year, Horton Plains attracts a significant number of visitors. There are several reasons why so many people visit this site annually. For the casual visitor, there's the famous World's End Cliff, a plunging precipice with a drop of about 4,000 feet. In fact, most people visit Horton Plains to see World's End. It attracts thousands of locals and tourists each year. This is a cliff with a vertical drop of around 4,000 feet, which offers a sweeping view of the landscape below. Sometimes the view will be covered with mist, so make sure to leave early before the clouds roll in. Then there's Baker's Fall, a wonderful waterfall that's another major attraction in the park. 22 meters tall, Baker's Falls was formerly known as Gornagala Falls, but after Samuel Baker discovered the waterfall in 1845, it was named Baker's Falls. On the way to Baker's Falls, there's the Chimney Pool, which is one of many artificial pools built in the early 20th century by British colonialists for fishing purposes. This pool has a man-made bun, which has accumulated water at an elevation above the pool below, causing the water to flow down like a mini waterfall. There are also several attractive hiking trails in the park. The most popular hike is the World's End Trail. Although the park is home to a diverse array of wildlife, animals are not easy to see here. Much of the time, the wildlife of Horton Plains is shrouded in mist. But one common animal is the sambar deer. But apart from the abundance of sambar deer, early colonial writers often mentioned the utter sense of loneliness in these plains. Fair to say, this place was a mystery for the Europeans. It's said that in 1834, Horton Plains was first observed by Lieutenant William Fisher and Albert Watson, after ascending the highest mountain in Sri Lanka, Pidurutalagala. Thereafter, this mysterious plateau was named after the then British governor of Ceylon, Sir Robert Wilmot Horton. But before its so-called European discovery, Sri Lankans in the early 19th century referred to these plains via two names. In 1840, Major Jonathan Forbes stated in his book that this area was only visited by native hunters, and that it was called Maha Elia, meaning the Great Open Plains. Forbes also states that a portion of these plains was also called Wilman Talawa. Also, during pre-colonial times, these plains were the crossroads for pilgrims heading to Adams Peak, or Sri Pada, which is a holy mountain that's visible from Horton Plains. Furthermore, stone tools and other evidence found here validate the existence of early humans in this landscape. After its discovery, the plains were used as a hunting ground by British colonialists. Notable figures like Samuel Baker and Thomas Farr wrote detailed accounts of how they hunted sambar deer at Horton Plains. Sir Joseph Dalton Hooker, who was a British botanist and explorer, then advised the government to leave all montane forests above 5,000 feet undisturbed. Thus, in the 1870s, an administrative order was issued which prevented the destruction of forests in the region. But by this time, much of the forests above this limit were used for coffee and tea cultivation. Today, Horton Plains is a national park. Although it's one of Sri Lanka's smallest national parks, around 200,000 people visit this location annually. Covering an area of 32 square kilometers, Horton Plains is bound by Thotupalakanda, which is Sri Lanka's third highest mountain. It's also home to Kirigalpota, which is the second highest mountain in Sri Lanka. Furthermore, Horton Plains is the only national park in Sri Lanka where visitors can go on foot. The early morning hours, between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., is the best time to explore the various hiking trails in the park. Situated 1,500 meters above sea level, the vegetation of highland forests in Sri Lanka are different. Classified as tropical montane cloud forests, these forests are home to many endemic plants and animals. Generally, endemism in cloud forests are high. The unique grasslands, occupying 20 to 25% of the total land area, constitutes about half of the park. This is a world of its own. Since the late 1880s, the vegetation of Horton Plains fascinated many prominent botanists. For instance, British botanist Henry Tryman and South African botanist Henry Pearson extensively wrote about the origins of Sri Lanka's montane grasslands. In fact, Pearson also wrote a specially commissioned 66-page report called The Botany of Ceylon Patanas. There are two main types of vegetation here: evergreen cloud forest and montane grassland. The origin of these distinctive grasslands have been debated, and the abrupt demarcation between the grasslands and forest in the highlands has intrigued scientists for centuries. One theory claims that it was a result of forest clearing and historical burning by herdsmen. In fact, German scientist Ernest Haeckel, who visited Horton Plains in the 1880s, stated that every year for a few months, Sinhalese mountain herdsmen would come to Horton Plains and set it on fire. This was done at the end of the dry season to improve the next crop of grass. Haeckel also stated that even though he saw the raging fires, he never saw the people who originated it. Interestingly, there's also a folklore about how Hanuman, the monkey god, set fire to these forests after his tail was set on fire by Ravana, the king of Lanka. It's said that the grasslands are a result of this fire. As the mist rolls from the hills, it spreads throughout the forest. In fact, most of the year this forest is covered in mist. At this elevation, the trees and plants have unique adaptations that enable them to withstand the environment. Also known as tropical montane rainforest, these forests are distinctive ecosystems. They occur in areas where there is frequent or seasonal cloud cover. These trees have slender trunks, gnarled branches, and are persistently wet, which causes the trunks and branches to make way for epiphytes like mosses, lichens, and ferns. These act like sponges by absorbing moisture from the clouds. Thereafter, the water is released into waterways and streams that ultimately become waterfalls. The cloud forests of this plateau are the source of three major rivers in Sri Lanka. There's the Mahaweli River, which is the longest river in the country. Then there's the Walawe River. Finally, there's the Kelani River. Due to forest clearing and commercial crop cultivation, less than 5% of Sri Lanka's original cloud forests remain today. The general height of these trees varies between 12 to 20 meters. Due to the lower temperature and high winds, the canopy trees are gnarled and twisted. However, an extensive area of these cloud forests have suffered from a phenomenon known as forest dieback, or canopy dieback. Forest dieback has been attributed to many factors, including natural and man-made causes. Natural causes could be climatic factors, water abundance, or fungal diseases. Man-made causes may be air pollution, chemical substances used for plant protection, or global climate changes. According to a research conducted by the Department of Wildlife Conservation, the area of forest dieback, which was first observed in the 1970s, had increased to around 30% by 1998. So what's the effect of forest dieback and periodic fires? Even though regeneration does occur, the composition of the vegetation may be different in disturbed areas. In his comprehensive book about Horton Plains, Dr. Rohan Pethiagoda uses this particular photo as an example. The photo, taken by Henry Cave around 1890, shows the montane forest near Adams Peak regenerating after it was cleared for tea cultivation. Here, the foreground vegetation is mostly dominated by tree ferns. However, Dr. Rohan states that bracken and aggressive alien species now outcompete tree ferns during regeneration in the area. Available data reveals that there are around 50 exotic plant species at Horton Plains. One such plant is gorse. This plant, which is considered an invasive alien species, has invaded the natural landscape of the hill country, especially at Horton Plains. In 1888, the plant was introduced via the Royal Botanical Gardens, and then planted in gardens and farmland by the British at Nuwara Eliya. Gradually, the opportunistic gorse plant took hold of the area. Some believe that the plant migrated to Horton Plains after it was planted at the former Far Inn by its British owner, or it may have been introduced during the period of potato cultivation in the 1960s. Either way, the invasive gorse plant colonized Horton Plains. In the next episode, we will focus on the history and animals of Horton Plains, so stay tuned.